Okay, Year 11, welcome to your video tutorial today on the last syllabus dot point of 8.1.1, which is required skills in software design and development. So the last syllabus dot point lists the required skills in software design and development, and we are going to have a look at all 7 of these today. If you kind of think about these as the mighty 7, they're the 7 most important things that you need to have, or skill set that you need to have in order to be able to develop software. So really our big question is, what do I need to be good at this stuff? So Mrs. talked for, we've looked at for 3 weeks or so, all of these different skill sets in relation to software. We've looked at all of this different, social and ethical issues in relation to software development. We've had a rough look at some of the theory behind it. What do I actually need to be good as a software developer? So the 7 key skills are communication, teamwork, creativity, design, technical, problem solving, and attention to detail. I'm not going to go into each of them too much because they're pretty self-explanatory, but you guys need to know all 7. So the first one is communication skills, and this is probably one of the most important because people in IT are pretty notoriously known for poor communication. So if you can be really good at communicating, particularly as a software developer, you'll be way ahead of the team. And a reminder that this is just not written communication, so emails or formal communication such as putting out surveys. This is also informal communication. This is verbal communication, casual conversation, formal conversation, the whole lot. If you think of communication skills, you can think of them within 2 domains. The first one is your communication with the client and in terms of meeting client needs, but also most of the time you work within a development team. So within a team situation. So it's not only your communication skills with the client, but it's also your communication with each other as a team. Communication is so important because so often key messages in terms of the design or the need or, the direction of the project, so often key concepts get lost in translation or lost in communication. Someone doesn't communicate something well and it has a bit of a domino effect. So if you have good communication skills as a software developer, you'll be way ahead of the rest. The second one is the ability to work in teams. I know for most of your software development, you will be working solo. However, it is really important that as a developer, you learn to work in a team because so much of software development is collaborative. Different people have different skill sets. So I've often worked in teams where I've done the database design and someone else has done the front UI and, there's been a project modeler and then there's been a server guy. So you can work up until teams of, 20 or 30 people. So teams can range from a couple up until, 50, 60 people even. So it's really important that you are able to work in a team. No software developer works by themselves. There's a pretty famous saying, no man is an island, and that's definitely the case with software development. So different people will also be working at different paces depending on your part of the job, different timing, different paces. Some tasks might need to happen coinciding. So it's really important that, you can work as a team and you can not only be self-motivated, but, pick up some of the leadership that have really good communication skills or ability to communicate interpersonally, so with each other, in order to get the job done. The third one is creativity, which most people kind of stick up their nose at in terms of software design because they think creativity is, making things pretty. It's definitely not. Creativity is actually not just making things pretty, in quotes. It's actually ability to see multiple pathways or solutions for the one problem. And it's actually incredibly important to be creative as a software developer. So what you're required to do, I just put some, the 2 best examples of creativity is logic, really. And in the coming weeks, when we get into thinking logically and how we solve logical problems, every solution has multiple ways for it to be solved. So, you might have a logical problem and you could code it in one of many, many ways. And what you're looking for is an ability to see multiple ways and picking the best. It's a bit of an animal farm number. Some solutions are good, but some are better than others. That goes anywhere from, creativity with the logic all the way up until designing, you know, really intuitive UIs that we've been looking at. Creativity, seeing the combination of all of those different screen elements and layouts to really make a thoughtless process for your user. The last one is design skills. So for most of the time, I've just thrown, you know, these two words down here, but these two phrases down here, but let me explain. Design skills isn't, again, making things pretty. It's designing in the sense of modeling the system. In the coming weeks, we're going to have a look at a range of different system modeling charts, or ways in which we plan out or model our system before we start programming. That's where all the really important stuff happens, because if we just jump in and start coding, we'll paint ourselves into a corner. So modeling the system, planning it out with different design modeling, system flow charts, structure charts, IPO diagrams, context diagrams, data flow diagrams. I know I'm throwing a lot of jargon, but these are all the design modeling, system modeling that we will have a look at. Essentially, they are designing the models for how the system, your particular code or logic, will work. And they're the design skills that are really important. If you don't have those skill set, often what you'll do is you'll find you have a very patched together system that isn't sustainable and isn't easily maintainable. The fifth, sixth, I can't remember which one I'm up to. Could be nearly towards the end. Sixth, I think. Fifth, I think. Technical skills. Technical skills can be in relation to a range of different things. Obviously, they are the technical expertise in order to engage within something. Hardware skills, obviously you're using a stack of hardware as a software developer, but they are also, you know, software. So, you know, setting up an Apache web server in order to be able to run your system is both hardware and software combinations. You know, using a particular like IDLE or IDE, which we'll look at soon, which is an environment in which to code. You know, actually being able to utilize this software is also another important thing. And then on top of it comes the technical ability to actually be able to program or code in a particular language. This skill set is often assumed, particularly the first one and the second one, in terms of hardware and software beyond the coding. That is just assumed, being a software developer, that you will be able to just pick up on, actually understand how to use those and have the technical skills and expertise around that. Problem solving skills. So this is the second last one. Obviously this seems pretty straightforward, but when developing software systems, I guarantee you will come into about 200 problems before the time you actually finish it. Solving problems efficiently is really where it's at though. So obviously we could talk lots about, you know, ability to look at a problem and solve it. But to solve problems efficiently, you must be able to look at the whole solution from like a big point of view, which is what the fancy word holistically means. Part of doing that is doing a critical path analysis. Now, we'll learn how to do these, but what a critical path analysis is, it looks at individualized tasks and sees if they could be isolated or if other tasks are dependent on them. And it gives you the best possible way in which to, you know, attack solving a problem or designing a solution based onto the like dependency of different tasks to one another. So, you know, if, you know, designing the screen designs is dependent on, you know, what data what my inputs and outputs are, which is dependent on this, means I have to complete these problems in this order. Whereas, you know, I might have a user manual which kind of sits out by itself. It doesn't really have too many tasks dependent on it. Obviously the completion of my system, but beyond that, in terms, it doesn't really matter too much. Nothing's really dependent on it in my system. So we will look at critical path analysis later, but basically the summary that you need to get with problem solving skills: 1, you need to have them; 2, you need to be able to look at a problem and go, yeah, okay, I've got this, and feel confident at solving things. But 3, to do that efficiently, you must look at the system as a whole and be able to say, this is the best order in which I'm going to solve all these problems, because you will come up against a lot. And last but not least is attention to detail. Small mistakes can lead to larger problems down the track if you don't get it. Attention to detail is where it is at. Always pay attention to the small detail. This could be in communicating. This could be in, you know, coding. Oh, I didn't tab in once to align all of my text. I don't really care. Who cares? Start caring. Start caring. Start paying attention to the small details, because they will make the big details work. oh, I forgot to mention that one thing to the other team member. Well, I'm sure they'll be okay. I'm sure they'll work it out. Don't be sure. In your communicating, always pay attention to the details. And last but not least, I guarantee you, at one point when you are coding, your reason for your whole system not working will be you are missing a semicolon on line 10,001 and you have 100,000 lines of code. I guarantee it. There is always a semicolon or a parameter problem every time you code, and if you pay attention to the details, you won't come into it. If you don't pay attention to the details, which sometimes when we're tired, I guarantee we all miss one, you will spend hours looking for that semicolon. The semicolon or the colon, depending on the language which you're using, has been the great hide and seek champion since 1971. You're welcome if you get the joke. Anyway, that's it, guys. They are the key skills required as a software developer.